But let me tell you this. I am no pervert.
A promise that the World Wrestling Federation will be the standard bearer for drug-free sports and entertainment.
McMahon was accused of by a worker at a tanning bar in Boca Raton, Florida on February 1st, 2006. McMahon was accused of showing nude photos of himself to her as well as groping and attempting to kiss the worker.
New allegations have emerged involving WWE billionaire CEO Vince McMahon. The WWE board released a statement this morning that the company is looking into a potential $3 million hush money settlement over an alleged affair McMahon had with an employee.
This morning, we are learning longtime World Wrestling Entertainment leader Vince McMahon has agreed to pay 4 women over $12 million over the past 16 years to keep quiet about allegations of sex.
Former WWE CEO Vince McMahon is now the focus of a federal investigation. NBC News reports McMahon is under criminal investigation as prosecutors try to determine if he broke federal law. There have been recent allegations of and a former employee is suing him.
This is not a hit piece. This is a record, a long, ugly one, of a man protected by power and a company built to forget. Let's start with something uncomfortable. Vince McMahon was never just a businessman. He was a myth maker. The voice in your childhood ear telling you what you are watching was just entertainment. No consequences, no real world spillover, just stories. This is professional wrestling after all. It's not that serious.
I can't believe Mr. McMahon is groping. I can't believe he's groping, kissing Trish like that in front of his own wife.
However, behind the fake stories, there are real people, real victims, and a system built to keep their stories quiet. In 1992, Rita Chatterton, the first female WWE referee, gave an interview to Geraldo Rivera. Through tears, she described being in a non-consensual encounter with Vince McMahon in the back of his limousine.
Must be the world. You know, how are you going to feel the first time you walk down past a newsstand and see your face on Time magazine? There's all kinds of money to be made here. You know, you're looking at like a $500,000 a year contract, and on and on and on. You know, like I said, I'm refereeing in Madison Square Garden. I'm refereeing on television. I'm doing talk shows, TNT, which was Tuesday Night Titan, a interview talk show. He did a 4-page layout on me in the WWF magazine, and things were really starting to happen. Into the limo, and we started talking, and he started telling me that, yeah, he had really neglected doing something with my career, and it was really time that Rita Marie came to be. And the next thing I know, Vince unzipped his pants, and he took my hand, and he kept putting my hand on his penis. He started telling me that he knew I didn't have a job. I had left Frito-Lay because of him. He knew that I had a daughter and that he could either make me or break me. The choice was mine. And he made me have oral sex with him. And he started to get really excited. And I pulled away, and he got really angry and said that it was worth $500,000 a year. And when I said no, he said that I'd better. And he started pulling my pants off. And he pulled me on top of him. And he satisfied himself through intercourse.
That interview nearly ended her life. Vince and the WWF, of course, denied everything. She was blackballed from the industry. The New York State Police opened an investigation, but no charges were filed. It was the 80s after all. Wrestling was still protected by the illusion of kayfabe, and Vince, well, he was nearly untouchable. Fast forward a couple months later, the steroid trial, United States vs. McMahon.
Talking about the single most dangerous group of prescription drugs.
The better, more muscular, larger, stronger your appearance, the more money and more successful you'd be. All the pro wrestlers that I associated with at one time or another used steroids.
Did you feel compelled to take the steroids to remain competitive? Is that why you did it?
Correct.
Where were you getting them?
Well, initially, you could get them around the weight room until I met Dr. Zahorian.
WWF's doctor at the time, George Zahorian, gets convicted. McMahon is indicted for conspiracy and distribution, but during the trial, something strange happens. The focus shifts, not to abuse, not to coercion, but to whether Hulk Hogan lied about saying his prayers and taking his vitamins.
Most of us think of professional wrestling as harmless entertainment and Hulk Hogan as the king of the ring. But was there a sinister side to his success? Some people now claim that his hard-muscled good guy image really came from his past use of dangerous drugs.
Little dude's out there that's been training, saying his prayers, and eating his vitamins. Someday he's gonna knock me off.
He is the king of the ring, but many former wrestlers say it wasn't prayers and vitamins that made Hulk Hogan a giant in the eyes of kids.
I myself personally have injected Hulk Hogan with anabolic steroids.
Did the biggest star in pro wrestling get to the top by using dangerous drugs?
The kids are believing that if they take their vitamins and say their prayers, that they're going to grow up to be some super athlete. Well, I got news for you. You can take your vitamins and you can say your prayers, but you're never going to grow up to be 300 pound with 24-inch arms unless you take steroids.
But I've trained 20 years, 2 hours a day to look like I do. But the things that I am not is I'm not a steroid abuser, and I do not use steroids. Hulk Hogan trial, and they didn't direct the focus on what this thing was all about. Somebody that had got involved in a bunch of illegal mischief, I would call it. And basically, when the paper speculated, and then when there are a lot of lies told in the courtroom, the papers printed these lies as fact. And it hurt me, it hurt my family. And on top of that, I was different than a lot of the people that names get thrown in the ringer. There are millions of kids that have believed in me and what I stand for, and basically it put a dark cloud over everything that I believe in.
To be fair, I guess he didn't specify what kind of vitamins. The public spectacle worked. Vince walks free. WWF essentially shifted the scandal from the entire company to the one man they knew was big enough to survive even such a scandal at the time. Call it strategic brilliance if you want.
Hey man, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when Hulk Hogan and Arsenio Hall run wild on you? We'll be back.
Meanwhile, the locker room is ruled by fear. Former employees describe it as the boys' club from hell. If you spoke up, poof, you were gone, fired, forgotten. If you stayed quiet, well, you moved up. The silence was currency. In 2006, a 22-year-old woman told Boca Raton police that Vince McMahon made an unwanted physical advance towards her in a tanning salon. According to the report, he groped her against her will. The investigation was dropped, no charges. WWE again denied everything. The next day, Monday Night Raw aired as usual. This is the pattern: accusation, denial, silence, return, repeat. The machine never stops because the audience doesn't want it to. And that's the genius of it. WWE built a world so disconnected from reality that its leader could be accused of such a serious act of misconduct and still receive a standing ovation the next week. In June of 2022, the wall finally began to crack. What had long been rumored, whispered in locker rooms, or buried under NDAs was now on front page of the Wall Street Journal. The story revealed that Vince McMahon had secretly paid $3 million to a former employee with whom he allegedly had a relationship that reportedly became coercive and later transactional. But the real kicker, WWE's own board was investigating him. For the first time in decades, the king wasn't untouchable. But that was just the start. The Wall Street Journal followed up with another bombshell. McMahon had paid over $12 million to multiple women over the course of 16 years, all to suppress claims of misconduct. The allegations were deeply disturbing to say the least. Women were allegedly manipulated, silenced, and in some cases, coerced. The stories described a pattern of exploitation that went beyond a single scandal. And these weren't just strangers. These were employees, talent, performers. By July, Vince had to temporarily step down as CEO, replaced by his daughter, Stephanie McMahon, a symbolic gesture, really, but one that shook the industry. And by August, Vince McMahon had retired from WWE, issuing a short, tone-deaf tweet. No apology or admission, only a quiet exit, after nearly 50 years at the helm. But even this relatively peaceful exit, in retrospect, wouldn't last long. In January of 2023, McMahon forced his way back in like a weasel. Despite ongoing investigations, despite company concerns, and despite overwhelming backlash from the public, he returned as executive chairman of the board, restructuring WWE's leadership and preparing for a future sale. And in April, that sale happened.
I asked Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel and WWE founder Vince McMahon how this all happened during our exclusive interview on Sunday in Los Angeles.
This is the biggest thing Ari Emanuel and Vince McMahon have ever done.
Yeah.
Combining forces like this there's nothing like this. There's never been anything like this. People have been talking about this for a long time.
WWE merged with UFC under the newly formed TKO Group, a $21 billion empire. With McMahon right back in power, this time wearing a pencil-thin mustache like a cartoon villain, this was more than a comeback. It was a reminder that power protects itself. And Vince McMahon has always known how to survive. But in January of 2024, unfortunately everything escalated. Unfortunately for him, fortunately for anyone with a shred of common decency. A federal lawsuit filed in New York accused McMahon of systemic coercion, forced encounters, and trafficking-level exploitation. The woman, a former employee of his at WWE, claimed Vince demanded increasingly violent acts.
Former WWE employee Janel Grant accuses McMahon. In the lawsuit, Janel Grant accuses McMahon of sharing sexually explicit photographs and videos of her with the wrestlers and recruiting men to have a threesome at the WWE headquarters, even during working hours, while referring to her as his porn star.
And when she tried to break free, he blacklisted her. The lawsuit also named WWE as complicit, alleging the company knowingly protected McMahon and buried internal reports. This time, the evidence was detailed, proper. There were tests, emails, payment records, and just hours after the lawsuit dropped, Vince resigned from WWE again. But this time, it felt different. Not just like a PR move, but like the legacy itself was starting to crack. Before we go on, I would like to point out that this story isn't just about Vince McMahon. It's about the system that protected him. For decades, WWE fostered a culture of silence, fear, loyalty above everything else. Employees who spoke out were dismissed, stories were buried, rewritten, or erased entirely. Sponsors looked away, and fans, many just kept chanting, "No chance in hell." But there's always been a chance to look closer, to listen, to reckon with the truth behind the show. Because Vince McMahon isn't just a brilliant promoter or character, he's also a man accused by numerous women of using his power to exploit, silence, and destroy lives. And the wrestling world can't just heal until it admits that it's enabled. Here's the part that makes all of this worse. It's not just that Vince McMahon has faced allegations for decades, it's that nothing ever really happens. Whenever a story drops, we get the same pattern. Shocking headlines, public outcry, and then nothing. The system absorbs the hate. The machine keeps moving. Why? Because Vince built that machine. When the Wall Street Journal exposed hush money payments totaling over $12 million to multiple former employees, Vince retired. And less than 6 months later, he unretired. He forced his way back onto the board, and WWE's own board let him do it. I mean, the same board that had investigated him turned around that greenlit his return so he could help secure WWE's $21 billion merger with the UFC. The message is clear. Bad press is bad, sure, but Vince McMahon is still worth more to the company in power than he is out of it. And look, this isn't unique to wrestling. Corporate America rewards power even when it's rotten. No, especially when it's rotten. You don't get to be Vince McMahon, billionaire, boss, brand, without people being willing to look the other way, to silence, to ignore, to move on. But wrestling, even more than most industries, is built on loyalty, on keeping secrets, on protecting the business. Vince created a culture where your job, your push, your entire career could be gone if you spoke out. That's why so many allegations didn't come out from inside WWE. They came later, from the outside, when it was already too late. The industry trained itself not to ask questions, and us, the fans, we were trained to look the other way too, to tell ourselves it's just pro wrestling, it's not even that serious. I've spent several hours walking through a disturbing history, not just of a man, but of an empire. Vince McMahon didn't just build WWE, he was WWE, and for decades, his name wasn't just protected, it was sacred. But look closely at the lawsuits, the settlements, the silenced voices, and everything becomes clear. This isn't just about one man doing wrong. It is about how the world around him kept letting him. Because this isn't just a Vince McMahon problem, it's a system problem. Behind every powerful abuser is a wall of silence. Legal teams, PR firms, yes men, business partners, media outlets, and in this case, even fans. People who knew or suspected but said nothing. People who convinced themselves it wasn't their business, or worse, this was just how the business worked. And it worked very well for Vince McMahon. Even now, after he retired in disgrace, returned behind the scenes, and left again following even more damning lawsuits, WWE hasn't once publicly addressed the details. There's been no serious internal investigation, no apology, no admission, not even a sentence acknowledging the possibility of wrongdoing. The company simply moved on, kept airing the shows, kept signing the deals, kept protecting Vince's exit, and pretending it was just another chapter in a long, complicated legacy. But let's be clear here, this isn't legacy, this is rot, beneath the surface of the world's most popular wrestling promotion. And every time we ignore it, we let it fester like a disease. Vince wasn't just enabled by lawyers and executives, he was also enabled by us, the audience, the ones who cheer when the music hits, who look away when things get messy, who call victims liars and the truth bad for business. Maybe that's what makes this story so difficult, because it forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. What do we do when the people who build our favorite things turn out to be monsters? Can we separate the art from the artist? And does accountability ever catch up to power? In Vince's case, the answer so far is no. He's lost titles, influence, some public standing, but not nearly what he should have. He hasn't gone to trial, he hasn't answered to a jury, he hasn't apologized, and maybe he never will. Because in this world Vince McMahon built, justice doesn't sell tickets. Silence does.